Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Historic Site Preservation Board, City of Palm Springs, California, meeting of Tuesday, June 12th, 2018. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Member Marsh?
Here.
Member Kaiser is excused. Member Dixon is excused. Member Lavoie has not shown up yet. Member Hayes?
Here.
Member Burkett?
Here.
Chair Johns?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll take the posting on the agenda, please.
The agenda for this meeting was posted for public review at the City Hall Bulletin Board on the west side of the council chamber and at the Planning Department counter in accordance with applicable law.
All right. I'll take a motion to accept the agenda as posted. All right. All in favor? Aye. All righty. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience today, this is the time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Historic Site Preservation Board on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Although the Historic Site Preservation Board values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. There will be 3 minutes assigned to each speaker. Testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of the hearing. And ladies and gentlemen, we do not have a public hearing today, so this will be your only opportunity to address the board. So I will open the public hearing, and anyone wishing to come forward, please do so now. Welcome. Please come forward. Yeah, you'll come right up here and sit here and introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Duca, and I'm part of the Mesa Neighborhood Organization in the Mesa. And it's come to our attention that somebody who's trying to develop the lot on the corner of El Portal and South Palm Canyon wants to remove the gatehouse, which is an historical fixture, and it was put on this. It's number 14, and it was put on historical site in 1985. So there's a little issue going on that it's on public property, city domain, which we have been maintaining for the past 10 years, our neighborhood, taking care of the landscaping. We've put lighting in, we've put watering systems in. So we don't know what we have to do here to stop this. So that's the agenda, and so I'm asking for your opinions on what our procedure is to go through with this.
Thank you. Will, thank you. All right, we'll come back to this.
And Mr. Chair, I can comment on that under staff business at the end of our agenda today.
So please stay with us,
Okay.
and I think there will probably be some comment and discussion about that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Lavoie. It's okay. Good morning, please. Anyone else wishing to come up? Introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Bernstein. I'm one of the owners of Destination PSP, which is located inside the Town and Country. I do understand the discussion about the sign program has been continued, but I did just want to express our willingness as a tenant to work with both the preservation community and the landlords to try and create solutions for the Town and Country that not just restore the building, but actually make it a viable commercial center in the heart of downtown. And we believe very strongly that the future of the building is not just with paint and building materials, but in making it work for actually 21st century businesses. We also feel very strongly that given the new developments downtown with some national brands, that it's important to have places like the Town and Country that help foster small and local businesses. We are probably the largest business inside the Town and Country, and I think right now we're the only one with both street frontage and courtyard frontage, so we have a special vested interest in making sure this works. We will, are hoping to work with the landlord and the preservation community on the sign program as it develops. But I appreciate everyone hearing the concerns of tenants, including our landlord, who has also been very forthcoming with us. And we'll continue to work on the preservation of this building. When we did take the lease on it, the space we had previously been uninhabited for 2 years, so we did a lot to help not only restore the Town and Country on our space, but also prove that it could be a viable commercial center for this day and age. So we'll continue to do so, and hopefully progress will develop, and we hope to be a part of it. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I might note that Mr. Bernstein also provided written comments via email on Sunday, copies of which have been provided to each of you.
Right, okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address us this morning? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Before we get into the rest of the agenda, Flynn, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I did read it, of course. For me, what was most entertaining about this is truly the historic and the vintage photographs. For anyone sitting at this table, we're all preservation wonks, and what fun to see these great vintage photographs, many of which I had not seen before, and the good examples of the vintage signage. So I appreciate that being a part of our package today. Okay, so we'll move on to item number one on our agenda is the consent calendar, and we'll have approval of the minutes. And we had two sets of minutes to review that we will approve. We have the January 9th, 2018 minutes and the May 8th, 2018 minutes. Let's consider the January 9th minutes at this point in time. Any corrections, edits, or changes for staff? All right, seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, there we have it. I think Mr. Marsh is the second on that. All right. Okay, so then we'll look at
Mary?
the...
Mr. Chair, would you take the vote then?
Yes, okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed to that? All right, thank you, Ken. Yeah. Oh, and Mr. Lavoy, were you not here for the January meeting? Oh, all right, excellent. All right. And now we'll do the same for the May 8th minutes. Any board member changes, edits? Dick, please?
Yes. On page 5, the second sentence, 4A, it's in reference to the Camino Norte property. In my comments, I also had mentioned in the ad, as well as consider creating a modern addition for their expansion. That was a comment that I had made. I think that should be added to the minutes.
Mr. Burkett, that was under the area where it said you had opined that the homeowner should work with the existing structure.
Yeah.
Okay, and to create a modern addition.
Right.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And then the other one would be, under board comments, would be, I also complimented code enforcement for their response. That is down,
Bottom of page 6.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we were both complimenting then code enforcement because I'm...
Correct.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
All righty, so any other changes, additions, or edits to our meeting minutes of May 8th? All right. All right, Mr. Lavoy, thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
And Mr. Marsh on the second. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much. That includes our approval of our minutes. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes. Okay, we've taken care of that. Item number 2 on the agenda, public hearings. As I mentioned, we have no public hearings today. Under unfinished business, 3A has been postponed, correct?
Yes, and actually, Board, what I would request is that you make a motion to continue the item to your July 10th meeting. The applicant was not able to attend today and also wished for additional time to work with the tenants of the space to improve the sign program. And so with that in mind, we would request that you continue the item to July the 10th.
Okay. Flynn, can we continue both the item 3A unfinished
I
and
would
new?
request that we do separate
Separately?
votes on those.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, following staff's recommendation, I'll accept a motion to, the correct term?
Continue.
Continue, thank you. Continue item 3A to our July meeting.
So moved.
Okay, so, all right. All right, I think it's Dick and Bill this time. Dick being the first and Bill being the second. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So we'll look at that and see that on our July agenda. Item 4, new business, 4A, and I believe this has also been continued into our July meeting.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chair.
All righty. I was really looking forward to seeing that one, so we'll just have to wait a little longer, I think. I'll accept a motion to continue that item 4A to July. Mr. Lavoy on the first,
Second.
Dick on the second. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, well, just clipping along here at a record.
Never
at
seen such a rapid
record
meeting,
pace.
right?
We've never had.
At a record pace. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. That's very funny, Bill. That's very funny. Okay, all right. All right, we are moving on to 5 discussions. 5A, August meeting cancellation. Staff.
Mr. Chair, as you are aware, we have canceled our August meetings in the past. Staff wanted to put this forward to you today to see if you also wanted to cancel your August meeting this year as well. As a side note, City Council is also going dark in August, as well as the Planning Commission and AAC.
Okay.
So the boards and commissions that the Planning Department supports will be going dark in August, and so it would not be inappropriate for the HSPB to do as well.
All right. Well, I would certainly support that. Without the Planning Commission and the Council and even the AAC seated in August. Board, your thoughts? All right, I'll accept a motion to cancel the August meeting of the HSPB. So moved. That's Todd on the first. Second. And Mr. Marsh on the second. All in favor? All right, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay. Mr. Chair, our
please.
calendar will be modified to reflect that cancellation of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. 5B, subcommittee reports.
We just have one subcommittee
Okay.
currently that is actively working, or I shouldn't say that, we actually have 2 subcommittees, but one that is actively working, and that is our demolition subcommittee, and I would ask if maybe one of the members would give a report of our last meeting.
And it would have been the first meeting, correct?
Yes. First
Okay,
meeting, yeah.
good. Dick, please?
Yes. I think we all agreed that this was amazing start for bringing the demo ordinance revisions we want to make forward. We met with 2 members of the Planning Commission, as well as our subcommittee, and Jim Priest, attorney out of LA, was contracted to the city, I understand, and he was excellent. Certainly understands ordinances and people, and also attorneys in other cities that deal with the kinds of ordinances that we're talking about. So we just actually, we were able to establish some criteria and have set a following up meeting for June the 21st. And I think both teams were very encouraged with the progress on the 3 things particularly that we discussed are the established requirements for a remodel application before approval, require that replacement plans and proof of financing be submitted at the time of demo permit is requested, and on Class 3 properties, change the date from 69 to 35 years or older. I have one question of staff to weigh in here is as to the discussion of possible revisions re the integrity so that we've been talking about so as to maintain architectural merit of original design. Should that be a part of this subcommittee, or should it not be the entire board having that discussion? We started it like I think a couple of months ago, so I just thought I should bring this up to staff and to the board to see the best way to handle this.
I'll give you my 2 cents. I think it would be appropriate for the subcommittee to also address that topic, since it's very closely related to any reviews that we might be doing relative to demolition. And so what I would recommend is that the subcommittee work on that issue. Just as a point of order, in terms of the work that the subcommittee does, anything that you develop will come back to the entire board for discussion. So it's appropriate to work on the integrity issue at the subcommittee level and then bring it to the entire board once you have a draft available.
Okay. The other thing that I would ask if we could establish a date for the Wellwood Murray patio landscape project. We had a discussion about a joint meeting with the library board. That's several months ago. I think they might understand that the library board may have some concerns about the revisions that had been recommended, so that we can get that agendized and so we can move that forward, because the project currently is sort of just sitting there. So if that, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to give an update on that. Last I had spoken with Tom Garcia, who is the Director of Engineering, he was going to be pulling that meeting together. So I'll go back and check with him when this meeting concludes.
Oh, great. Okay, that's good. And I think under my other things, yeah, will be under board comments.
All right.
Thank you.
Dick, could you, for the audience and those people in the room today, let everybody know who the subcommittee is and who you actually met with for this?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
yes. The subcommittee's Bill Lavoy and Todd and myself. And the two members from the Planning Commission were Peter Maruzzi and Doug Donenfeld.
Okay.
And then the attorney was Jim Priest.
Okay.
And then Flynn. Those were the ones, the people that were present.
Right. Of course, I was familiar with who our subcommittee was, but not who the Planning Commission was, so I appreciate that. Any other questions on Dick's subcommittee report? Okay. Any other subcommittee reports? No, I think that was it. Just the one?
Again, you had requested last month that the La Plaza Theater Subcommittee get back together. We're still awaiting direction from the City Council Subcommittee in putting that together, so we will do that as soon as
Okay.
City Council
great.
gives us the direction to do so.
All right, excellent. Moving on to board member comments, I would like well, I'll turn to the board. What comments might you have? Mr. Lavoy, Mr. Marsh, Mr. Hayes? Aloha?
I do.
Dick, please. We're our macadamia nuts, aren't we?
No hula skirt, nothing. Okay. Cornelia Whitehouse. It was very wonderful to see that got approved to go forward. And my only question is, also, is the filming scheduled as well? We have this wonderful offer that came from PSPF, and I just want to be sure that because it'd be starting, that we really, that has been established as well.
The funding for the $15,500 was included in the budget that the council approved a week ago, and I'll be coordinating with Marcus Fuller, who's the assistant city manager, on the timing for the project, and we'll be bringing reports back to this board as it moves forward.
Okay. All right.
Please.
La Plaza, and this may not be the purview of my board, so I'm going to ask staff. You know, the new bungalows that are now almost all occupied with shops, just a wonderful addition to the center. And I was at the opening of Studio 17, and with the ribbon cutting, and Chris, the owner, is practically begging, is there anything we can do to get more signage just to show that the shops are there, because there actually is nothing from either inside the center near Grand Central, that entrance, or off the street of Indian Canyon. And this may not be in our purview, but if there's anything we could do to ask for some sort of signage, just as a request to the owner. I'd just like to put that out there.
Well, the La Plaza Shopping Center has a sign program that was approved by Planning Commission and this board a few years ago. I am not aware that the Studio 17 people have or have not submitted a sign permit, but any signage that would be requested by a new tenant would need to conform to the approved sign program.
Right.
And that sets up an established sign system for that building so the signage is coordinated.
And let me just add to that, that the code also allows for directory signs in the downtown area. And so if they wanted to amend their sign program to include that, that's another opportunity.
So would they need to get all the shops owners together and then,
Just the property owner.
but they need to,
They
the
the tenant, need to work with their
They need
property
to
owner.
work with it. Okay, that's what I wanted to
On the
know.
sign program, and then we can assist them in getting that through the process.
Okay, very good. And just a question on the Racket Club, if all members had a chance to do the site visit?
They have not. The owner had indicated to me that they would arrange for visits for those members who were not able to tour when we were there, and unfortunately responded to Mr. Lavoy. Yeah. So we will continue to work with them to
Okay.
make the opportunity available so that all the HSPB members can tour and see the same things that you all saw.
Okay. And is there a list for Palm Springs properties on the state and national register that I've missed?
If you go onto the historic resources under the planning homepage, there'll be a listing of all of the city's Class 1 historic sites. And over toward the left side in that list are the properties that have been designated and added to the National Register.
Oh, okay. I just saw the right-hand side, so I need to, I
Should
need
be
to look
there.
at the whole
I'm
sheet.
hoping that what I'm telling you is correct, because I think that's the one that's been uploaded to the web.
Okay.
I'll double check, but I think it is there.
Very good. I'd just like to comment and thank particularly Flynn on the orchid tree. I know maybe I've been a pain recently, and I apologize for that. But the code enforcement is really quite responsive, and Flynn, I so appreciate your actually also working with the owner on the deficiencies that we're finding. And when I send you things, it's not, I'm really not, I'm just trying to keep you updated, that's all. So I hope that that will be taken in, in that vein. It's just such an important resource, and I think also one note that we got, I think the owner actually appreciates knowing about some of these things. So anyway, I just wanted to make mention of that.
And Mr. Burkett, if I could just comment, we do appreciate the fact that you take pictures where there are breaches in the fence. And for all board members, where you see things like that, please forward those directly to code enforcement so they can address those as quickly as possible. I think as we discussed at the last meeting, there have been revisions to our vacant building ordinance where they do have to register the buildings. They have to have security. They have to make sure that the site is secured. So where you see evidence that that is not taking place, especially on Class 1 structures, it's important to forward that into code enforcement and just indicate that under the vacant building ordinance, these things need to be
So
corrected.
should we send those, should I be sending those to code enforcement rather than you?
Yeah, go ahead and send those directly. If you want to copy me on that email, that's
Okay.
fine, but send those directly to code enforcement so that they can
And how do I
address
get
those as
that
quick-
email? Do I just call code enforcement and ask them for it?
I'll go ahead and send you the links.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We really appreciate that.
And it is on the city website as well for the public.
Yes.
Okay. And my one last thing is, I suggest, there's 3 different major projects that I know that are out there in the wings, and I realize that each of these take a lot of staff time, and maybe we could put some priority on it, because we have to be reasonable, can only spec so much at a time, but I think the citywide survey is one of those, to submit to council, the Las Palmas Business Historic District, and then the Tennis Club Historic District. So I I wanted to ask staff if that would be a help. You know, should we, as a board, prioritize so that we can be reasonable of what to expect as well?
Yes, certainly
big
staff would
projects.
request that you prioritize those items because we are pulled in many different directions by our different boards,
Right.
commissions, and city councils. And as I've indicated to you in the past, in terms of our workload of just the standard applications coming through that we are required to process, it becomes a little bit difficult for us to do all of the things that everybody wants us to do. And so
Right.
when you see me start to get a little upset at meetings, when you're asking, when is this going to get done and when is this going to get done? It's just trying to manage the demands of all the boards and commissions that we have before us. I am assuming that because the demolition is the issue that you want to address first, that we will spend our time on that for right now. And we'll go ahead and continue with that process. Looking at the other things on your list, we would ask the board to prioritize in terms of what you want to do next. One of the things that I would mention relative to the tennis club neighborhood, I think Ken went through the steps in terms of what that would take for designation as a historic district. I think one of the things where we could use your assistance is outreach to the board of the tennis club neighborhood to begin discussions with them about their interest in pursuing that designation. And so we could certainly use your help in doing that. And if I could encourage the board to extend that, that would be great. But again, prioritizing would be helpful for us.
So could we have discussion now with the board? about-
Yeah, Dick, hold your thoughts if you've completed
it.
your
I'm done.
board member comments, but I'm definitely going to come back to you. Does any other board member have some comments? All right, then let's, Dick, you've raised a number of issues that I also had on my notes here. Please, Mr. Marsh.
Well, my only comment is, will the subcommittee for the La Plaza Theater reconvene at any point soon in light of the fact that the Gensel contract has been let and the committee hasn't met in a long time?
Flynn, you did mention this just a few minutes ago.
Correct.
About the La Plaza.
Yeah, we're waiting for direction from Mayor Pro Tem Roberts on that.
But yes, I think that we would love to see naturally our subcommittee, reconvene on that. So thank you for bringing it up again. But we are waiting for direction now from the council subcommittee. In an attempt to prioritize, and I think we did on our historic resource report of 2 months or so ago, we approved the codicil, if you will, on the, yeah, please. As far as staff is concerned, is the historic resource survey now complete?
It is complete in terms of the content of it. We've got a few areas that we're still just going to do one final sweep on corrections. The next steps for the citywide survey is to do some outreach to the community. There are a number of properties that were listed on the survey as being potentially eligible. Often the public and the individual homeowners and property owners don't really understand what that means. And so prior to taking this to the city council for their approval of the whole document, we'd like to do some deliberate outreach to the community, especially those property owners whose properties were mentioned in the survey, so they understand what it means, and so what it means and what it doesn't mean, I guess is the simplest way of putting it. It's a piece of outreach, probably with some community meetings, possibly bringing in Denise Goolsby with neighborhood organizations to help launch that out to the community.
So that's a lot of man hours that you're looking at to facilitate that.
It's going to be some public meetings and some neighborhood meetings, and probably Flynn and or myself going out and explaining this to the community, as well as written correspondence to the individual homeowners. It's very consistent with what was done in 2004. The last time the city did its citywide survey, and there were a number of properties that were identified on that survey, the city then sent letters out to every one of those property owners and explained what it was, and then held meetings to help them understand it. Because oftentimes, getting one's property listed on a city register scares people. And it isn't something to be worried about, it's something to just be aware of, and helping to explain that to them is what we'll really be doing.
So this still has to happen prior to the council seeing it?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
And it really is, it behooves the whole community to do this, because if this goes to the council and members of the public don't understand it, they're gonna come to the council meeting upset and worried. And we would rather have them come to the council meeting fully endorsing it, because it's really a
Understood.
wonderful opportunity that's been presented in that survey, but it's a matter of communicating and informing, the same way that we've done with the real estate community and Class 1, Class 2, Class 3.
Could one step towards this outreach to the community, could it be having a public hearing here at the HSPB on the item? Would that be a first step? It's a public hearing?
Potentially, that would be one of the ways, but we'll still need to do individual notification for that.
So we're looking at a 6-month time frame?
I hope it doesn't take us that.
You know, is there, I mean, and not to put work on you, certainly, but if we were to, because we want to prioritize it, if we were to put a 90-day time limit on this, is that unreasonable?
No, I think that would be a good impetus for us to begin doing the compilation of addresses, begin doing the notification, et cetera, and planning for that.
All right.
So,
And I think the only, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, does that require a motion for us to?
No.
All right, does the board feel comfortable with that? Give staff an additional 90 days to complete their outreach, have these individual meetings, and let's get it to the council before the end of this year.
Except I don't see meetings occurring during the month of August, so it's really mid-June and July to accomplish that.
Right, yeah.
And there's another aspect of timing as well. While we have fewer and fewer people who leave town for the summer, there still is a fairly large part of the community that does leave town in the summer. And one of the largest criticisms that the city gets when we start doing this, you know, how do we communicate to the public, is don't do it during the summer when we're all out of town. So it's a matter of trying to pull this together in July and then in September when people have returned, so that people feel like we're doing this at a time when they are available to hear it.
Okay. Well, then instead of a 90-day, instead of
Yeah.
it saying, let's 90 days, you know, where it's only June, it's 6 months till the end of the year, is it comfortable to say by the end of the year, before the end of the year, that the council will receive the Historic
Yes,
Resources Survey?
with the idea that we would begin doing outreach in September, and that
Okay.
gives us August to start putting together the mailing lists and everything else.
Absolutely.
And could there be, instead of a lot of multiple meetings, just a couple of town halls, which I think the council's been very effective this last couple of years doing, to cut down the workload of having to have so many meetings, and then maybe one PS, but just as an idea, sort of a town hall concept would help?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So that's kind of prioritizing it. We've given it some weight to it. I'd like to come back to the tennis club, and I think that when we suggested that the tennis club become a historic district, I think we were pretty much all aware of the breadth and depth of what that was going to take. Certainly reaching out to the tennis club, historic district, homeowners association
organization.
or group there, yeah. Instead of just putting it out there and thinking that any one of us is going to actually do that, would it be appropriate to form a subcommittee of the HSPB that would be tasked with doing that? You know, perhaps even going to one of their meetings. I think they do a summer picnic. I think there's a summer picnic where it just might be something, a good opportunity to announce the HSPB's intention.
Certainly, I think that would be appropriate to form a subcommittee to do that.
So then, Dick, I have to put you on that subcommittee, but I do, because your awareness of the tennis club and the orchidry in particular has been very valuable of recent. So will you Okay. And who would you like to have serve? Can it just be 2 members? Is that,
That's fine.
is that okay?
Yes.
We could do Linda and Dan, they're not here.
Well, that is the way it works, isn't it? You know, I would want it to certainly be a willing partner, though. You know, somebody that isn't just tasked with. Bill, thank you very much. All right, so Mr. Lavoy and Mr. Burkett will sit on will form a subcommittee for the tennis club district to continue outreach and to the board of the neighborhood association in particular.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, we've got some information in general on historic districts and the process and so on that we can also provide that will help augment that.
Excellent. The very few people that I just mentioned it to who live in the tennis club district were very open to the idea, thinking, well, that's a cool idea. No pushback yet at this very, very early stage.
I think that when one recognizes the benefits, they usually outweigh the additional processing time that it takes with some of the projects to go through a review, so.
Well, you know, it's funny because in my 13 years of living in Palm Springs, it's always been known as the Historic Tennis Club District. So why isn't it a historic district? So I think we won't get much pushback from that. All right, I'd also like to address the Cornelia White House and the filming. Ken, I know that you still have some work to do on getting the money and the organization on it. Do we know a start date? Do we know a date when a construction fence is going to go up in around the Cornelia White House?
No, I haven't had a chance to talk with Assistant City Manager Marcus Fuller, but he will have that information, I believe, and I can convey that to the board.
Okay, but it was scheduled for this summer. It is scheduled
That's
for
my
this summer.
understanding,
Okay.
yes.
All right, because I think, is it the board's, does the board still maintain a position that we would like to see this documentary of the restoration of the house? Nodding. Okay, so I think we
And
still
it
have.
was included in the funding that the council approved
Yeah,
at
good,
15.5.
excellent. All right, well, that's the Cornelia White House for me. On the vacant building ordinance, and I know that the city worked for quite a long time on this, is that going to be a published document that we can access and read ourselves and see how?
It already is.
Okay, and is that on the website, city's
It is.
website?
It's under the Title 8, which is the building department. So if you go into the city's homepage, which is www.palmspringsca.gov, go to government, then departments, then planning. On the planning homepage, you can access the zoning code and the municipal code. It will be under Title 8, which is buildings. And the actual section, I believe, is, and I'm looking for help here, is it 8.6?
Oh,
I believe it's 8.6, but the title of it is the Vacant and Boarded Building Ordinance. So it's very obvious, once you open Title 8, you'll see it there. And it's there completely available for public review.
It's powerful.
May I ask for a printed copy for us?
Certainly.
At our July meeting?
Certainly.
All right, something that I physically, tangibly have in my hand? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I'd also like to talk about La Plaza, and Dick and I have been complimenting code enforcement of late, and I had 2 very, very good opportunities to interact with code enforcement, specifically to La Plaza. And one of them was some temporary enclosure of a seating area for Bill's Pizza, which was some stanchions with some construction. Yes. However, netting. Now, of course, that has all been gone. It has been replaced by permanent outdoor seating that mimics the seating along Indian Canyon. The seating is now duplicated along the La Plaza.
Arcade.
Yes, arcade. So it looks great, looks official. We didn't see that because it was similar to something they already had and they could duplicate it easily without coming through the HSPB?
I don't know off the top of my
Okay.
head, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
What we will do is we'll look at their land use permit for outdoor
Yeah.
dining to see if it was modified. I don't remember it coming through as a modification to the existing
Yeah.
permit.
I mean, I don't see how this board would have denied it. It is what it should have been. Like I said, it mimics the Indian Canyon side, and it all just looks great. It's a nice wrought iron fencing now, and it feels good. It feels good. So kudos to the code enforcement on that. So I would like to, and I think you're going to have some input for us, Flynn, on what Mr. Ducote talked to us.
Duca, D-U-C-A.
Duca, Mr. Duca, Dennis Duca, on the gatehouse, the gatehouse marker. I think we're all familiar with this little rock formation. Do I have some agreement that we know what we're talking about here? Okay. Is it a Class 1 site?
It's actually designated as a Class 2 site. However, it's still an important structure, I think, for us to preserve and for us to have concern. Just by way of background, the property owner there adjacent to the Mesa Gatehouse is in the process of getting building permits approved for the construction of a single-family house on the property there. The gatehouse itself, as was testified earlier, sits in public right-of-way, so it's not on private property. This is a little bit of an unusual situation, and so consequently it really falls upon the city to be responsible for that structure. One of the issues at hand is with the construction of the new single-family residence, the property owner is required to do curb and gutter along the South Palm Canyon frontage and along the El Portal frontage. And with the general plan requirement relative to the width of the street right-of-way, it creates some issues with the location of the gatehouse. The property owner had requested to move it. I think a better solution is to keep the gatehouse in place and to look at ways that we might be able to modify the right-of-way around it. I think that would probably be the most effective way to continue to preserve the gatehouse. So I'm currently working with engineering. We had a meeting yesterday with the property owner as well as Mr. Duca and Miss Rosemary. Yes, yesterday to look at that. And so engineering's doing some work on what we can do with the right-of-way to modify that so that we don't need to move the gatehouse and we can preserve it in its existing location. So we are working on that currently.
Amen. So what comes to my mind, and for the purposes of my conversation here, I'm going to refer to it as a relic, as a piece of, left over from another time in another period. Ken, several years ago, when Modernism Week was in the vacant lot across from the Francis Stevens School, the city did some sidewalk improvements along Palm Canyon Drive there.
I remember.
West side of the street. And there are several relics. I'll just refer to them as relics, as rock or stone columns that the city was so generous, and Ken, I think you might have played a role in this, sidewalked around it, didn't discard them, left them in place, and still made the improvements. So maybe that's what you're referring to, a possibility, Flynn, of still making the improvements and keeping it. Because, I live down in that part of town, and I go by there all the time, and I know that little gatehouse there, and I certainly wouldn't want to see it lost to development. The other thing I would say is, Mr. Duca, yeah? When you sat here earlier and you said, what do I do, where do I start? I think this was a pretty good place, because to bring it to our attention certainly raises our awareness about it, and staff is already aware of it. And so thank you very much for coming this morning.
Yeah. Just one more
Please.
comment on the gatehouse. As a Class 2 structure, even though it's not Class 1, we would still bring any request to either move it or relocate it or demolish it to the Historic Site Preservation Board, since it is a listed structure. So again, the intent is that we preserve the structure in its current location, and we will work at doing that.
All right, excellent. And then just another quick thing where we talked about the La Plaza and the signage and Bungalow 17, they just had the ribbon cutting. They do have a wonderful little blade sign on their property. And again, in thinking about, wayfinding or directional signages, this is, I believe, and truly, as staff confirms, it's an issue between the tenant and their landlord, not unlike Mr. Bernstein working with his landlord. And we would see sort of the results of that, but not necessarily play any other role in it other than to approve what they come forward with.
Yeah. With a sign plan, or sometimes individual signage, where it's on a Class 1 structure or property, we look at, is there any impact to the historic resource? And so we do bring those things forward to you when we need an assessment of whether or not there's an impact. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ken, on signage.
No, generally what we do with historic structures is once the board has approved a sign program, signs then are required to follow that sign program. So again, as Director Fagg said, it's one of those that unless a particular sign appears to have some kind of a particular greater impact than we would imagine, a typical sign permit that conforms to a sign program would be approved at staff level after the sign program had been approved by the HSPB and Planning Commission. It's a lot of terminology, but that's the distinction between those various kinds of hierarchies.
All right. That completes my board member comments. Any other board member comments? No? Staff, anything for us other than what we've just discussed?
Yes, I do have a couple of items for you. I handed out a memo from the city clerk's office relative to the expiring of terms and the extension of those terms that do expire. This impacts members of boards and commissions that are appointed by City Council. And just by way of background, the City Council is going through a process now looking at basically districting the city for City Council elections. And they're doing a rather extensive outreach process for that. One of the key issues associated with that is to have greater diversity not only on City Council but on our boards and commissions. And so the City Council feels that in doing this outreach, they will also encourage greater diversity of applicants for our boards and commissions, and so that's why they want to extend the terms. Now, who this applies to specifically on the Historic Site Preservation Board is you, Mr. Chair. Your term is ending here on June 30th. You are no longer eligible for reappointment. They would like to extend your term through December of 2018. And then Ms. Dixon also, her term expires on June the 30th. However, she is eligible for reappointment. The intent is that they will wait until December and fill those two positions at that point in time. And so Ms. Dixon could reapply and be reappointed at that
Right.
time. This is voluntary, so if either you or Ms. Dixon choose not to extend your terms, you're not required to do so. But this does give the City Council an additional 6 months to do outreach if you choose to extend your term. So again, it's up to you. And if you just want to talk to us privately outside of this meeting relative to that, that would be appropriate.
No, I'd like to make some public comment. I'm very, very grateful for this 6-month extension because without this 6-month extension, today would have been my last day as a member of the HSPB, which caught me by surprise because I only learned of it in May. I thought I was eligible to extend my term, but under the current guidelines, I was appointed to fill a vacancy. So my initial seating on this board was to fill a vacancy of 2 years. Then I did reapply, and I was reappointed for a 3-year term, giving me 5 years. Well, I would have termed out at 5 years because only 3-year terms are available for appointment, and I would not qualify for another 3-year term. So I'm very happy to have an additional 6 months with you all. I think we will do some election of our officers again. Is that going to be in July?
Yes, that will be next month.
Okay. So again, I'm very happy, and I would like to stay on with the board. So if I need to do anything other than say, yes, I'd like to stay.
That's all you need to do.
All right, great. You know, I'm just curious if the city in there looking at more diversity in outreach to expand those people who can participate on our boards. Will they be looking at the shortcoming where somebody who fills a vacancy then automatically doesn't get to apply for another full term?
I haven't heard if they're going to be discussing that issue. That would require an actual change to the municipal code.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they've discussed that at this
Yeah.
point in time.
Because all I'm saying is that most board members serve a 6-year term. And under the circumstances of my original appointment, I would have termed out at 5 years. So I'm very happy to get the extra 6 months, so thank you. All right, any other questions on, please?
So this is a one-time thing that they're doing?
Correct. This is just a one-time thing that they're doing as part of this districting process for city council.
Okay, and then do they have an idea of when the districting process might be completed?
I don't. I know that the public outreach portion of that is going through at least November. I don't know exactly when they're going to finalize that. I would assume that would come into play for the 2019 elections, but that's just my assumption.
Okay.
Todd, at last week's city council meeting, Councilmember Coors laid out the whole program, and it is an extensive program of town, of town halls, of public meetings, of public hearings, and Flynn is correct. I think there's something happening almost every single month up to and including November. So it's going to be on the front burner, this whole discussion about redistricting. The city hired a demographer?
Demographer, correct.
A demographer to look at the population. I mean, he did so if you go back and look at Jeff's, Councilmember Coors' layout of the plan, it's all right there. So it's all happening. It's happening without delay. So this is all a part of that, I think. Please.
Santa Barbara just did this. Have them look at what happened in Santa Barbara. It has been a mess. When one of the councilmen becomes a mayor, they have to have a special election to pay for the new councilman to replace her. And then someone got booted up, and so they've had 2 special elections in the past year. And who pays for this? I think whoever got booted up should pay for it, but not the citizens of Santa Barbara, with no fault at all.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Duly noted. Duly noted. Anything else?
Yes, I have
Please.
just.
Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
to comment on that, it also concerns me that the Historic Preservation Site Board, as all preservation commissions, need to have qualifications in order to serve on the board. If you go to district elections and you choose people from individual neighborhoods, who's to say whether that person is actually qualified to serve on this board?
That's the council.
Yeah, I don't know that there will be any change in terms of how council does appointments to boards and commissions. While city council would be elected from districts, I don't think that there's any intent that board and commission members would be appointed from districts. There are specific responsibilities on certain boards and commissions. Architectural Advisory Committee is one where there are qualifications necessary, as well as Historic Site Preservation Board. And so, I don't think City Council has even discussed modifying those qualifications or moving boards and commissions to a form of district appointment.
Well, again, just to put a period at the end of that sentence, it affected quite a lot of people. I mean, this is a considerable number of people from many different boards, Airport Commission, library trustees. So I think it was a good thing. I think it was a good thing, and I benefit from it, so naturally, I think it was a good thing. Flynn, do you have some more?
Yeah, just two more things. We've already talked about our demolition subcommittee meeting on June the 21st. That will be at 1 p.m. in the Development Services Conference Room. Just wanted to make sure our committee members were aware of that. Did I send you all a meeting invite for that? I think so. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I sent that out. And then the final thing that I have for you is that with renovations to our council chambers, our July meeting will be held at the Convention Center. And on our agenda, unfortunately, we indicate that our July 10th meeting will be here in the large conference room. It will actually be over at the Convention Center. So if you'll just make a note of that, we will include that information on your July agenda in terms of the room location.
All right, thank you.
And that's everything that I have, Mr. Lyon. Do you have anything else?
nothing else.
Okay.
All right, any others, no more staff comments, no more board comments, any last minute thoughts? All right, I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:55. See you in July. All right, thank you.